Hi, welcome to Awakenings Within.
There.
Hi, how are you doing, AJ?
I'm very well. You?
Good. We have lots of fun things to talk about today, don't we?
Yeah, I guess. I
They're
don't know.
not fun. Okay,
Well,
they're not fun.
well, there's certainly pertinent topics that people are hearing about and about today. So
Right.
um,
Right.
the
So,
one of the big ones today, November 18th,
yes.
2021, Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle
Yes.
Rittenhouse. His trial is at a wrap. The jury is currently in deliberations. And for those who don't know, Kyle Rittenhouse was a young kid, 17 years old, when the Kenosha, Wisconsin riots were going on. And
Last August.
yeah, and it was everything was just crazy. People were burning down buildings. There was all kinds of like mass violence all over the place. And Kyle, who was 17, um, had some friends and family who lived close to where all this stuff was going on. And he decided that he was going to go and look after them. He was going to try to go there and try to protect the place and see if anybody was hurt. And
Right.
not an EMT, but he did have some medical training. And he decided to take with him his AR-15,
Yes.
which he was allowed to do. It is legal in Wisconsin to be able to do that for anyone that age. Actually, to have a long rifle and open carry is
Right.
perfectly legal. And his reasonings weren't, a lot of people try to twist around, but to be very plain is that there was violence happening.
Yeah.
There was people being attacked. There was all kinds of things happening. So he took his weapon with him. He didn't hide it. He didn't try to be sneaky about it. He wasn't like creeping around corners or doing any kind of weird things like that. He was going.
Right.
And while he was walking through, um, he was accosted by three different people, and he ended up actually shooting and killing two of them.
Yes.
And a third, when he originally had his hands up, had a weapon, and then brought the weapon down and pointed it at Kyle. Kyle shot him and almost blew his arm off.
Right.
Um, in the aftermath of all this, he has been charged with multiple crimes, murder, triple homicide, being one of it. And it is a giant political fiasco. It
Oh,
is
yes.
absolutely a circus. Those who are very anti-gun versus those who were pro. Um, gosh, second amendment.
Yes.
Um,
Well, yeah, I
pro.
mean, it doesn't help when our president calls him a white supremacist. So
That is ridiculous. Nobody
that,
involved in this case was anything other than white. None. It
it's,
happened during a BLM riot,
yes,
but everybody involved was not black. So
right. They were all the
there's no
same color.
racism portion of it.
Right.
It's ridiculous the liberal talking point and always banging the drum when there's anything doesn't go their way. The racism card is the first thing they throw out.
That's right.
Because if they say it's racist, then it must be, and they really believe this. They really believe that the truth wraps around what they say. They think that if they
Right.
say it, it's so, and that today is further and further becoming anything even close to the truth, because information today is just at hand, at fingertips. There are
Right.
those who are diehard home team, don't matter how badly they do. Democrats who are just, it's my team,
Right.
and they said this, so I'm on this side, and
The
And
whole reason he felt like he wanted to go protect his community was because of the non-police presence.
true, true.
So that is, he felt compelled to protect his community because he
Yes.
was just that kind of kid, that wanted to do that and wanted to help. And he was actually saying he went to help for medical and also to put out some fires because he had done some
Yeah.
volunteer
He
firefighting.
wanted to do something. He was moved. He was moved in spirit to do something. And it is it is a great thing that he wanted to do that. I'm not saying it's great what happened. The people getting killed, was not a great thing. Even Kyle himself, um, broke
Yes.
down, in court, sobbing because he, lamented having taken their lives. But in
Right.
in that moment, what
Right.
do you do?
They were out to kill him. They were trying to
Well, he
grab
had
his
no idea.
gun.
He had no
They
idea if they wanted
were
to punch him in
assaulting
the face,
him.
or we're gonna gut him with a knife. He
Right.
had no idea. And with all the violence going around, with the mob rule mentalities that was happening, his he erred on the side of not
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that ended with two people's lives, being ended, and a third man having to have his arm pretty much put back on.
Right.
But
Right.
he even himself had said that Kyle only shot him when he drew his weapon on him.
Right.
So there's people who are advocating that what you have to get shot first, hope you don't die, and then
Right. The
fire.
prosecution actually said that you are not allowed to defend yourself because if you brought the gun. If you brought the gun, you're not allowed to defend yourself.
But they have a gun.
Right. That
So
didn't make any sense at all.
so by the same exact logic, the guy
Right.
who brought the gun, who drew down on Kyle, didn't have that right to do so because he thought he was being threatened. It's
Right.
the same thing.
Right. And
So,
the rap sheets for these guys are
oh
just
yeah,
absolutely
oh yeah, these are
astonishing.
these are career criminals. These are people who had
Right.
very long rap
They
sheets, and
just
they were
went
taken
there
advantage
to
of a situation that was,
do what they needed to do,
yeah,
because they wanted to get out aggressions or whatever they were doing. So,
whatever. They were moved in some sort of bad spirit to that was taken up in the, like I said, the mob mentality of everything, and was trying to
what
just.
was it for? What was the riot
There was a
for?
guy who, and I don't remember his name. I should have prepped that for prior to this, but there was a guy who was, his girlfriend had called the police on him,
Okay.
and because he had abused her, and
Okay.
when the police showed up, he had a big attitude about everything, and he actually went to his car while they were there, yelling and shouting at the police, and go grab a weapon, and then goes to like assault the officer. And they shot and killed
Oh,
him, and that blew up into, because of all the media,
and the
beating the
police.
drum about all the police brutality and everything else, and making this big hullabaloo. It was, it caused this big backlash. It completely fabricated. But he was also a repeat offender. Had been a beating, of domestic abuse and violence,
Mhm.
and he went to go get a weapon and pull it on a police officer. I mean, sorry, the malice is
Right.
light. I'm sorry for that, but you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. That's just the way that goes, and
Right.
that's the way it fell out. So
Yeah.
anyway, so
Well, one of a councilwoman in St. Louis. I'm
mhm.
from St. Louis,
Oh,
and she was there at Ferguson, right? So she says on her Twitter or Facebook or something that it that this was a case of more white supremacist because during Ferguson there were white supremacists shooting at the crowd, and like she made up a whole new dialogue to what happened in Ferguson, and
Wow.
people were calling her out saying, "You're lying! Like that never happened," you
See, but
know.
that's the thing that they've been able to get away with for a long time, is that they could say some kind of outlandish lie, and the people who are the hardcore fans are
Yeah.
just going to believe it because that's my team, and they said it, so it must be so, and then that's it, and then they're shut off. The ears are
And
closed, minds
nobody
closed.
looks up anything, right? They didn't. I mean, they were saying that he wasn't, he was 17 and not allowed to have the gun when it
Wrong.
was in their law that he was.
Yes.
So they didn't even look that up. They said all the news media, everybody across the whole country, no reporter wanted to look that up. Like they didn't take 1 second to look up the gun laws in
There is no
Wisconsin.
there is no mainstream journalism anymore. There just isn't. It doesn't exist.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Um, and it's quite sad. And people, if are coming to that realization, if they haven't gotten there, they need to get there, um, because the media is not in the business of telling you the truth. They're not in the business of telling you what's going on. They're in the business of causing fear and outrage. And the fear and
Well,
outrage,
I
click
feel
their
bad for
links
the
and pay
families.
their get their advertising fees.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
They know what gets people to click the links, and it's fear and
Yes.
outrage. And the more they can spin
Yes.
people up, the more people are going to follow and click on their links and try to see what's going on. And then those things will just be filled with more. And it doesn't matter if it's true because they don't care.
Well, and now the hype is now they're called the National Guard, and when they come out with
Oh,
the ruling, well, we know this, and then now they're calling the judge a white supremacist too. Now the judge is thrown in there because he said something about his Asian food taking too long coming over on a boat. Did you see that?
I missed that.
So, they said
Oh, how terrible.
now he's racial. He's wrong. So,
Yeah,
I mean, how
that's
can
all
he
they
be
have.
allowed to talk about Asian food and boats? It's like, are you serious now? Like now the
That's
judge
it.
is on trial
Yeah, that's it.
with the media? Like that's now an issue that he said our Asian food. Obviously I mean, you can't say anything anymore. You cannot speak about another ethnic, well, except for my color. You can talk about me.
Well, I mean,
I mean
you
that's
have
what's
them.
going on in the media. Like that, I I just can't believe they did that to the judge now. They're like
It's
he's
an
not
interesting
even
spiral.
right.
It's an
Huh?
interesting. It's an interesting spiral we found ourselves in. So
Oh, it's
the internet
horrible.
the internet made the world smaller and brought everyone closer together. Social media started set a narcissistic seed in people,
They have
where people
divided.
want to be seen and
Yeah.
appreciated and externally validated.
Right.
And because of that, it gives way to the media, who will be able to set the narrative to say, oh, if you think this way, then you're a racist. And because people have been conditioned via the internet and social media to be so, um, what's the word there, not reputation, but their image
Right. Right.
sensitive, that they don't, God forbid, want to even touch or broach anything that has to do with being racist or nationalist or anything that's outside of the main drumbeat of what the media is pushing. And the media knows this, and because they get money, I mean, the percentage of money that comes into media via advertising for political campaigns and political
Mhm.
contributions is enormous. So you
Right.
have an influential entity preying on a weakened or susceptible public driven by political motive.
Right.
What could
What
possibly go
what
wrong?
happened to the the term PC, politically correct?
Oh,
That's not even I mean, we don't even use that term anymore, do we? Like politically correct is not even a
no,
term that
it's
is
morphed into
used.
woke.
Huh?
It's morphed into
It's
woke.
woke,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, it's
And
morphed into that.
yeah. And uh, it it hurts my heart, because I've never, I've never seen color myself. Like I've not ever had I've not had to deal with that, I guess. I grew up in St. Louis and we were, I don't know.
Yeah,
We were a pretty mixed community and I didn't ever point people out by their ethnicities, I guess,
it's a funny, it's a funny thing to me, and so on its head. So I grew up in New York. Um,
Mhm.
so my father's from Argentina, so I'm Hispanic descent. Um, what's really funny though is that New England and New York, especially, and I can speak for the areas that I lived in, have this prejudicial view of the South as being KKK and racism and oh my gosh, all these boogeymen, whatever. All those Southern people are so racist, whatever. It's everywhere. I heard it all the time as a kid, and then I moved to the South,
Mhm.
and and having been down here since '99, so now what, 22 years of living in the South, I have never had anyone call me a spick or or anything derogatory that had anything to do with my ethnicity, a race, or anything like that.
Right.
Completely the opposite. But guess what? I did in New York multiple times as a kid, multiple times.
Well, the communities up there are separated by I mean, I was walking down Chinatown next to
Mhm.
Little Italy, okay? I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah, it's weird. There's like one
their
street.
neighborhood. Huh?
It's weird. There's like one street in between those two areas.
There's one street and the people they stay over there and the people they stay
Yeah,
over there.
yeah,
And I didn't see them cross over. Let's just
yeah,
put it that way. And that blew my mind, you know? I thought
yeah.
to myself, well, this is the melting pot. This is the mixing pot, right? Wouldn't it be? But really,
Uh,
everybody and can we just say that it's cultural? It's because that's the culture that's there. That's the
mhm.
language they're speaking in that neighborhood. That's the foods they're eating and selling and all that thing. It has nothing to do with dividing and prejudice, right? I saw that as being that they're staying in their communities where they live and having all of the things that the countries that they came from. I mean,
Right. No, it's
and
absolutely. You're absolutely right.
and I walked down Chinatown, got an egg roll, and went over and got a cappuccino. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like,
If you go into if I've been in New York City a number of times. If you go into Spanish Harlem or just Harlem proper, you'll see that not only in Spanish Harlem is it a Latino Hispanic based community, but inside of there, they're carved up between Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Mexicans. They
Right.
divide themselves up. So it is absolutely right. It is very cultural
It's
because
a
they have a.
cultural thing. It isn't
And I get
about
it.
because they don't like the other. Uh,
Well,
well,
I
I mean,
know. I
there
don't
is
think
some
they
of
don't
that. I
like.
know there is. There is some, but
Well, there is some, but I think it's
there
kind
is.
of like um, if you and I found ourselves, let's say we weren't friends, and all of a sudden we found ourselves in Germany, and you were like
Uh-huh.
another American. Oh my gosh, there's another American. We have commonality and things to talk
Right.
about, in backgrounds and stuff, and a shared experience of sorts.
Right.
Which I think that's what draws people in those types of communities together. And it's
Right.
very different in the South. In the South, you don't have that. You have
No.
the things that come across, that get publicized again with the media. You you used to have, the Southern Democrats, which the people talk about the Southern Switch was complete myth. Um, who the KKK was an entity of the Democratic Party.
Of the Democratic Party.
Yeah,
I
of the
know.
Democratic Party. And and then when Lyndon Johnson's came about, with civil rights and everything,
Yeah.
there's a very famous quote that I'm not going to re-say about how we'll have these people voting for us for the next 50 years after that, because they went and pushed it through. Uh,
Wow.
so with abolishing the Jim Crow laws and the civil rights movement and all like that.
Right.
But it's um it's not like that in the South. In the South, the communities are very blended. I mean, you have some that are a little bit more centric than areas than others, but for the most part, it's
Yeah.
not like that.
Well, in Charleston, I lived in Charleston,
Hmm.
South Carolina, and the communities were
Hmm.
a little bit more separated, I guess you'd say.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it's further down you go or what, but definitely in Charleston. And there was actually an island of people called the Gullah.
Oh
I
yeah, the
don't know if
Gullah.
you ever
Yeah,
all of them. Yeah, their
yeah,
food is amazing.
yeah.
Anyway, so the first time I met a person from the Gola Island, they were coming in to rent a car. I was a rental agent in Charleston at Alamo Rent a Car, and I couldn't understand what they were saying
Oh
because
yeah. Your
they're
dialect's so thick.
it's a Southern French dialect.
African mix kind of thing. Yeah, that's going
Yeah,
on.
yeah, but I mean, it's just it's its own language. You don't, and that was cool. But Charleston, when I lived there in the 80s, it still was kind of separated. That it wasn't as, the people didn't mix as much, I guess you'd say.
I think where you kind of, so I'm not saying it doesn't exist in the South.
Right.
I'm just saying it's far less prevalent than it is up north. And up north you have.
That's surprising.
Oh yeah, I mean I've lived all over. When I was in the army, I was stationed in. I was at Fort Knox, Kentucky. I was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I was at Fort Rucker, Alabama. Um, and I've been to I was at Fort Dix, but that's not in the South. Um, of Fort Gordon in Georgia,
Right.
and I've been all over the place.
Right.
Plus, I lived in outside of Fort Bragg and went to in North Carolina. Well, it's Fayetteville, but I moved over to the Wilmington Burgaw area, lived over there,
Right.
and in Leland, North Carolina, and then moved up here. And when I got a job working for the Navy, um, to the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area. So I've lived all over, and I'm just saying in general. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I think it's more socioeconomic um, divisions in the South. You have
Yeah.
poorer people who live in certain areas, black and white and Hispanic alike, and then your middle
Right.
class, and then others. Um, so it's more like that. In the North, people tend to just gravitate, irrespective of their socioeconomic status. That's a factor too.
Yeah.
But it's more choice and more cultural. I want to live in
Right.
a community where more people look like me, sort of thing, which is fine. Um, I get
Right.
that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's just kind of where the lines kind of go. To my
Yeah.
experience, to my anecdotal experience.
Well, and that's like me. I can't ever speak into the race thing because I can't. I'm not walking those shoes. So I don't ever, want to say that I know because I don't, and that's the
you
truth.
know the experience of being a white woman in America,
Right.
so you have a racial experience.
Well, sorta. I
Sort
guess.
of. You
I
do.
guess. I do. Yes.
You do.
Um, I would call it more of a woman experience. Um, I've never thought of my race as being part of that, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Um, I only started doing my own ancestry and that kind of thing and finding out that I had opposing ancestries, right? Irish, Scottish,
Okay.
English, German, French. I mean, I had this big melting pot of my own of ancestry. In fact, I just saw that movie Belfast this last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And again, those are cultures but ethnicities that are religious, backgrounds that are opposing each other. So
Hmm.
there's always going to be something that's dividing. I feel like, in this Rittenhouse thing, they tried to make it a division thing, and I'm not understanding, why. What I mean, how? Isn't like you said, everybody that was Caucasian was the ones that were involved.
Yeah. I mean,
So
because that's the card they play.
that
That's the
just
card they
didn't make
play
sense. That was like, what?
when
I
there's
don't
nothing else.
get
When they
it.
can't argue facts. They want to argue feelings. And how do you get feelings out of this? Well, you throw a disparaging comment in there, and then you get.
Right.
So that's where the race card comes into. They
So
feel that they can sway people that way if you try to make them afraid of being called racist. So and that's their go-to plan.
so those of us out here are who are boggled by this, our minds are boggled, and we're trying to. I mean, what can we do? Do you think? I mean, what is it that we can do as an individual?
Um, well, the thing is, be hungry for truth, and don't allow yourself to be spoon-fed by anything. Not by you, not by me, not by the media, not by anybody.
That's
Go
right.
by all means. Either seek out the underlying root causes of why. I mean, either you are or you're not. If you're an emotional person, you're just going to listen to whoever is going to give you the emotional hit that you're looking for. If you want to be outraged or you have a propensity to be outraged, then people are going to read a
Right.
headline. They don't read it any further, and then they get their hit, and then they feel like they know something when really they're just regurgitating some media
That's
point
right.
that's politically driven.
That's right.
If you're a pragmatic person and you truly want to know facts, then there's two levels to go through. The first is getting the information: who said what, where, when, why, and then the next level is where you start to cultivate your wisdom, and then where you say, okay, I know the things that were said, but ask yourself why. Why were
Right.
they said? So when you understand the motive behind it, now you start to cultivate a little bit of wisdom and discernment into yourself, and you start to grow kind of as an individual.
Right.
Like I had said earlier, the media is not in the business of telling you the truth.
No,
They will tell
they're
you
not.
something. They will
And
tell you,
that's what boggles people's minds, actually, that they
yeah,
think that they're sharing information.
they're in the
They're not.
advertising business. They're in the advertising business. They pay big money to
Yes.
advertisers who study lots of psychology and how to affect you emotionally to make impulse
Yes.
buys, impulse decisions, impulse. How do you affect impulse? You do it via emotion, because rational people don't act on impulse.
No.
So that's where they get this stuff. And they've groomed people. And social media is a big one that helps groom people, because people are
Right. They're trying to get group think. So there's
yeah,
group think going
yeah,
out
absolutely.
there.
So, I mean, take your
Right.
time. I mean, you can know a lot. I know a lot of really smart people have not a drop of wisdom in them, not a drop. Um, and that's, I do. I used to work with lots of
Yes.
PhDs, and these were people that could tell you, line by line, word for word, you know, uh, uh, pick a topic. That book over there, page 433,
Right.
chapter 15 will tell you all about blah, 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 blah. But the application of knowledge is where wisdom comes in. To be able to look at underneath and say, well, why is this like the way it is? And what were the motives of the person who tried to put this forward? And that's the big thing. So to help yourself feel, to help yourself understand and set your soul at ease. So when you feel this tense and tension and anxiety, is have a healthy distrust of authority.
Yeah.
People who come out and claim to be an authority in anything. And that's not to just dismiss them out of hand, but ask
Right.
yourself the question, take in what you're hearing, and then ask yourself the question of, why is this person telling me this? And is it good?
What is the
Is it
motive?
true? Is it
Right.
useful?
Right.
Run it through these filters, and you'll start to see that a lot of things will start to fall away, because they're kind of like, well, this isn't positive. This isn't uplifting. This doesn't help the situation in any way, shape, or form. Like with Biden calling this kid, what was the quote he said? Some kind of domestic terrorist?
Right. A
Is that good,
domestic
useful?
terrorist.
Is it good?
Yes.
Is it useful? Is it true? None of it.
No,
So why is he saying
it
it? It's
wasn't.
because he's trying to get an emotional response out of you, to
Right.
coerce you into a way of thinking, to get
Right.
you on his team, because his team is all about the outrage and impulse button. So that's what
Right.
it's about. And the second,
Because they're afraid of other Americans being vigilantes going out there trying to protect their community.
I don't think
That's
it's
what
so
they're
much.
afraid of.
I don't think it's so much that. Um,
I think they're a little bit afraid of that.
I think it's deeper though. I think it's deeper than that. Kyle displayed, he wasn't a person who reacted out of fear. And the media and the politicians like people who react out of fear. They like people who cower.
Well,
He was the
they
only
said he
brave
was
actor
acting
to
like
go to the
he
keyboard and send a
yeah.
mean tweet out.
Yeah.
Kyle got up and did something. He took action,
Right.
and
And
they don't
that's
like
what they're afraid of.
that. Exactly. They don't.
That's what
They
they're
don't want him
afraid
to
of.
serve as a model for other people. They
They
don't.
don't
So they
want
want him punished. They want him
right.
punished.
They want to show that he's not allowed to do that. So you're not allowed to do that. So
Right.
you be quiet and sit down and let us do what we want.
Exactly. Exactly. There was a part during the trial. There was a part during the trial where the prosecutor had admonished him about not being a BLM supporter. Like,
I
what?
know. I
Like,
know. And
really?
then pointing that gun at the
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. And so the prosecutor points the gun across the courtroom. Alec Baldwin just blew somebody away with
right.
a prop gun.
You
Well,
you
so I
you
suppose a
can't
prop
do
gun.
that. I mean, I have some basic gun knowledge, and I know you're not supposed to shoot point it at anyone ever. You hold it
Never
down, you
point a
never
weapon at
point
anything you're
it
not willing to kill.
right,
It's,
unless you're going to.
yeah.
I mean, I
That's
can't
so
believe
true.
he did that. Like for drama effect, which actually backfired on him. So I'm glad, because there's so many people out there going, "Are you kidding me that you just did that?" Like,
he looked a fool. He looked absolutely a fool. And the judge wasn't having any of it. I
but
mean,
that's why they're going after the judge. That's
well, yeah,
why.
because you know what? He's doing what a judge should do. A
Right.
judge should be, I'm about the facts, not feelings. And they want to play all the feelings. And
Well,
that's nothing that's why they brought up the stuff that was inadmissible. Because they figure that if they can make the jury feel a certain way, they can sow that certain seed, because you can't undo that. You know what I
yeah.
mean? It can't be undone. So it's worth it to them to take a little bit of a slap on the hand. Why do they
Now,
try to
now,
hide?
and the lady on MSNBC, her name is Joy. She's
Joy
one of
Reid?
the,
Yeah.
yes. She was talking about, well, he's got all these white jurors and only like one black man as a juror, and blah blah blah, and going on and on. But we have to remember Rittenhouse is, and she said, well, if it was a young black man, that wouldn't happen, or something like that. And it was like,
This is
it was crazy. I was
race
like,
plays no basis in this case
I was
whatsoever.
trying to figure out where
They
she
have
was
to pull it.
going.
They have to pull it in some ridiculous way. It plays
Yeah.
nothing to do. I mean, this racism boogeyman is
Yeah.
around every corner for them. And that's an industry too. You have to understand. Racism is an industry. Nobody who's in the mainstream media seriously wants racism to go away. They don't, because they won't have anything to write about.
That's why they don't want
These activists,
coronavirus to
Al
go away.
Sharpton would be out of a job if there was no such thing as racism. Think about it.
They don't want
is
COVID to go away either.
no,
I'm
they do
telling you,
not. They do not.
it's crazy.
You're standing
I
up all
just
of
am
these
like,
institutions, and people who have this money are getting this money thrown at them to be able to fight this boogeyman. Be it COVID, be it
exactly.
COVID's not real. COVID's real, and COVID's deadly, and COVID does kill people. I lost a good
Right. They're like,
friend of mine to
be
it.
distracted over here because we don't want you to see what we're doing over there.
It's
So be
it's
distracted because we're doing this other
the
stuff.
insidiousness of it is so deep, which is why you really have to ask yourself whenever you hear some of this stuff. Is the why question. Why is this person talking this? Why are they saying it? So here's a prime example. Something that I figured out a long time ago, when it goes a completely different topic, but we'll just touch on it very quickly. With gay marriage, the politicians will come out and they'll say, I'm for gay marriage. And the other will say, well, I'm not for gay marriage. And then they'll say, or rather, they'll say, I want to legalize gay marriage. And they'll say, well, no, it should be illegal. What's the real problem with that?
Right.
It's not whether gay marriage should be legal or illegal. The big problem with that is that government has no business in it whatsoever. But when you say yes or you say no, now either way you decide, you've given them the power.
Right.
That's the insidiousness of what they do over and over again inside these different things.
Right.
If you let them mandate having we should mandate vaccinations. Oh no, we shouldn't mandate vaccinations. If you give that to them, rather than just say, it's not your role. That's not it.
Right.
You don't have this power to say yes or no. You don't have the power to control this. Whether you say yes, you're for it, or no. See, it's not the right question. The question is, you don't have the authority to say yes or no.
Right.
It's mine. It's my body. It's my autonomy, and you need to see your way out of it. See your way out of how I do, how I treat my body, and see your way out of my bedroom. See your way out of all of this, because you don't have any of it. But they trick you. They trick you by trying to get you into one side or the other.
Inclusiveness.
And
they now call it inclusiveness.
Well, people
if you don't agree with whatever they're trying to divide us on, you're not being inclusive. You're
Yeah,
not
well,
in,
you lose either which way. It's
it's
there's no answer
it's
to it, because you've given
unreal.
them the power to say yes or no, whether one
Right.
side or the other. It's a false dichotomy,
Right.
and that's why the important question is why? Why are they saying that?
Why? The why is to divide us. It's
Yeah,
just to divide us.
absolutely. That's how they get their
A
the
house
ones who
divided will fall.
yeah,
Don't we all know that one? A
yeah.
house divided will fall.
It's really funny. Race
Falling.
relations were better 15 years ago,
Yeah.
than they are today.
Yeah. And it's
And the
definitely
progressives
because of
think
politicians.
they're making progress, right? Because progress is part of progressivism.
Right.
I mean,
We've
no.
gone backwards so far. I don't
Oh,
even
absolutely.
know
Oh, absolutely.
what to say.
Absolutely. But it comes from a lot of people. It used to be reporting was you state what happens and you make up your mind. You know, that's what
Right.
journalism was. Just
Right.
here's the things. Here's what we know. The things, and there might have been some spin to it here and there. True, and that was
Mhm.
always a thing. But today, every story that comes out is like the Michael Glass case, which, if you don't ever seen the movie Breaking Glass, it's today it's laughable. It was a giant thing where this guy had made up all these. I work in cybersecurity, you know, and it was a big thing. This guy was making up all these stories about this fake hackers that he had interviewed and all these other things, and it was a gigantic. He won all kinds of these awards and everything else, and then he lost his job and everything because come out he made it all up. Today, everyone's doing it.
I didn't haven't seen that.
Yeah. Christian Hage, what's that guy's name? Darth Vader. Um,
Oh,
Haydenson, Christian Haydenson, I think.
yeah.
I think
I'm
that's his
not
name.
sure.
He played in it. Yeah, it was called Breaking Glass. It was a story about him, and it happened. And he got money and everything else. He just completely made up these interviews and stories, and then people said, "Oh, really?" Actually, what it was is that the hacker community was reading these stories, and they were just like, "Who in the world would say this?" And then they started looking
Ah.
into it, and then it was bad idea to get the hacker community spying up, because if they want to find out something, they're going to find out something. So yeah, but today all journalism is like that, and it's unapologetic. There's no even guise or
Wow.
pretending to be one way or the other. They don't present facts and give you the ability to make up your mind. They expect that you should be, if you're not, you're an awful person. You should be. They give you what to believe on a silver platter. They dish it
Right.
out to you. So
Now what okay, I have a big question, and I know we're at 34 minutes.
that's okay.
Um, I have a big question about this. Okay, so what do you think why is it good that we still monitor the news versus just turning it off and acting like it doesn't even exist anymore? What do
Well,
you think? What's the pros and cons to that?
um, the the con side is that you run the risk of accepting what you hear as being some sort of norm, as being something that's real.
If you turn off the TV?
I don't know if you don't. If
Oh,
you
if
don't,
you don't. Okay.
if you
All right.
continue to listen,
That's
if you
that.
continue to listen,
Uh-huh.
um,
Right.
there's an old Mark Twain saying that if you I think we were talking about newspapers at the time, but if you read the news, no, if you don't read the news, you're uninformed, and if you do read the news, you're misinformed.
I love that.
Yeah,
That's exactly it. See,
and
I
it's
knew you
very
would come
true.
up with something. I knew
But
it if I asked you.
so
Um,
it's it,
yeah.
if I mean, but you need to be aware of things that are going on
Right.
in and around you. You need to be engaged. The thing is, though, is that you have to have some discernment, and you get discernment by trying to understand the reasonings for why you're hearing what you're hearing.
Right.
Not just collect the knowledge of what people said and regurgitate. That doesn't. You're smart. You know lots of things that other people said.
Right.
If you don't have any sort of wisdom or discernment, so you aren't able to effectively use that knowledge to make decisions or help other people or to move in your life.
Exactly.
And that's the big thing. Um,
That's where it goes back to.
yeah, so you have to follow with that. So in not listening to it, you don't have any kind of clue of what's happening. You know, the riot could be around the corner from your
Right.
house. You know, what are you
Right.
gonna
You do need to know a little bit. I mean, I heard a fight outside my door earlier,
oh
like on the street. If somebody's getting beat up, I guess. I'm not sure.
oh Lord.
I'm usually the Gladys Kravitz that like runs out there and checks it out. But I couldn't because I was working. So, something was going on,
I
you
guess.
know. I mean, and that's unfortunate. Like that to me, I'm like, okay, that's real news. Like
Yeah.
that's a real encounter, a real thing,
Yeah.
you know.
I
But
think
things we can't grasp.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, I mean, you have to know kind of what's going on, and
well,
have a kind of clue of what's what. I mean, even if it is out and out lies or distortions of a situation, they're still coming. You still have some awareness that there is a situation where if you did
I
cause
think that we need to be aware, right, of
yeah,
things happening in our community, and I think that's why it's important to have, though, a community that you a group of people that you do get together with. Don't isolate yourself. I know through the pandemic people were isolated and quarantined and all of that, and now we have a little more freedoms. I
yeah,
say that with anyway. So I mean, I think it's important that align with those people that do have the same, you know, thoughts as you and in some views. And it's good to have opposing views too, though. I mean,
oh, absolutely,
that's why you and I are doing this. We're
yeah,
going to have opposing views on some
oh,
things,
yeah, no doubt, no
and
doubt.
it's okay. It's
I,
good. It's good discussion because you find out other things.
you know, I've purged myself of certain things, and one of the big things is I didn't say I purge myself, but I make an active effort to keep myself purged of um, ego running my life and the need to feel validated and right
That
from external sources.
yes, ego.
I navigate my world with the full understanding that I will try to take in and understand the reasonings of why I see things happening around me, act accordingly, and make decisions that are pragmatic and not emotionally based.
Yeah.
And that serves me well to be able to do that. Now, can I be emotionally overwhelmed? Absolutely, human.
Right.
But you have to. I think it's one of the biggest things. My son was suffering with anxiety and some depression and things like that. And um, the doctors had prescribed some medication and everything for him, and he was in a way he needed it. And then after a while, he stopped taking it, but he didn't tell us. And today, this is well over a year later, he loves the way he feels right now. He feels like they were just kind of like to help him by. He was in a bad spot. But one of the things he said was that I stopped um, emotionally investing myself in things that don't matter, and it changed everything. He changed his perspective, and
Changed his perspective.
yeah,
Right.
and that was huge. And when he did that, he wasn't dwelling on all these negative things about what people thought of him, and whether or not somebody liked him, and whether or not he was going to belong in this ego-driven need for validation. He kind of distanced himself for that. So he's driven now by more of the things that he feels that he's in competition with himself. I want to do better than I did yesterday, kind of thing. Because we're talking about grades
That's great.
and stuff like that, and he's extremely mature. Um,
I was going to say, isn't he 15?
he's
Isn't he?
15. He's 15. This started when
Right.
he was like late 13 and well into 14. It was a time. Um,
I,
well,
I feel like our
well,
kids have grown up faster. I don't know. I think our kids kind of had to
well,
in a way with because of all these things, because of the media. I mean, everything's adult now. I don't, they used to be careful what they said on the newscast. Now
no,
they don't filter anything. Everything's to go, like, and if you're even talking about in our education system here, the critical race theory stuff with
no, that's a whole
the
other
books
discussion.
that they're throwing in there and everything. So that's a whole nother subject.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah,
but I think they are growing up. I think they have a maturity level that's different than what we did. I do.
yeah. I mean, for the most part, I think is true, but I think it's a lot of maybe yes and no. Maybe I don't think that we had as kids, we didn't have this device in our pocket that was constantly judging us.
Information. Well,
Well,
and information.
no, the information part, the part where the social media thing that's come up. They're actually, and that's a good topic. I'll forward you later. We could talk
Yeah,
about
we'll talk about that.
Instagram and Facebook, where they have done their
Exactly.
studies where they knowingly are affecting children in negative ways. And so I don't know
Yeah.
that they're more growing up faster in that we didn't have we had the peer pressure in the school thing happening, but it was different.
Yeah, we could take a break from it and go home
True,
into our room and not think about it
true.
again.
Yeah, yeah, and there were
Yeah.
certain kids that were there, and in that time who really had problems, but not to the level and to the extent and the severity of how it is today. And I
Yeah.
think that becomes because of that,
Agree.
because of the social media and the false and the stage that's set there is that
Yeah.
you're not good enough if you don't have enough that followers, or if how many likes you get on a post or a picture or something like that, or a video.
Right.
All of these external validations are
Right.
horrible. So so yeah. So like I said, that's another topic. But
That's another topic. We need to
yeah,
wrap this one.
yeah.
So
So
the
so when it
Rittenhouse
comes so
thing.
Rittenhouse, we're waiting for the verdict to come down. There's a high chance for a mistrial due to the
Yes.
prosecution's total bungling of the case. I mean, the charges that should have never even been charges. Um,
Right.
the witnesses actually, some of his witnesses had even they put one witness on the stand, and they asked him, so did anyone ask you to change your statement? And he was like, well, yeah, you did.
Oh,
Afterward, it was horrible. I mean, it's actually horrible. It
yes.
really goes into a malicious prosecution of what's happening here, because
Right.
it did not
It's
occur
it's
during.
a lens of where we're at in the country. It
Yeah,
really
a
is.
cursory glance at this case should have had it thrown out.
Right.
Absolutely. He was not doing anything that was flagrantly illegal. At worst, it would be maybe manslaughter, a
Right.
manslaughter charge, but trying to get him for murder, no, that's not going
Right.
to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to prove some sort of premeditation, and that's where they try to go for, and that made no sense whatsoever, because they try to say that, oh, well, he likes Call of Duty, so he likes going around killing people, so that when this all broke out, he decided to grab his gun and go down and shoot at people, and that's not what happened at all. And there's all these
Right.
video evidence to corroborate all of that.
Right. Right.
So we're waiting to see what happens. Um,
Yeah.
with any luck, a lot of prayers for this kid.
Yeah. And I'm praying, and I pray for the families that were affected, including the ones where the guys were shot
Yeah,
and
it's
murdered.
horrible all the way around. It
Yeah.
really is.
It's not, nobody wins in this. No, I mean,
No,
he
no, no,
might,
no.
get off with some charges, but he doesn't win because
He's
that's something he just experienced too.
Yeah. I mean,
Everybody that's involved experienced. So
this
nobody
kid is going to
wins.
be carrying this his whole life.
That's right.
He is not unscarred from it.
That's
And
right.
when he broke down on the stand, and LeBron James, the guy who cries when he gets, whacks his elbow on the court, started saying that how this kid was faking on the stand,
That's
sobbing.
terrible. I know. It's
Who
how
do you
can,
think you are?
yeah, how
Your
can people
your
just
greatest
do that?
accomplishment is you throw a circle through a hoop. That's
Yeah,
it.
I know.
And you don't have this. I mean, but and you use your platform to demonize this kid and crucify him in the court of public opinion, and
Yeah.
just like the president did, which is completely ridiculous. But this is the world we live in. Everything's politically driven.
Everything's political right
It
now.
is.
So just be careful, everyone, on who you're listening to, what just watch your filter. Make sure your filter, for me, I have to ask God about it,
Yeah,
pray
sure.
about it, ask God about it. I think he's the one that'll guide you in the right way to go. So, all right, I'm going to wrap this up, and thank you so much, AJ, for this discussion. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Bye now.
Good night.